Hello, my name is Jim Peterson, president of HomesNOW, Not Later. I'm not here to ask you for anything because since June 2017, when HomesNOW, Not Later started, all we've heard from the city government is no and no. So I'm here to say that what HomesNOW, Not Later wants to do is going to happen with or without you. The homeless don't have time to wait for your 5-year plan. The things I've heard from the city council members and planning commission upset me to no end. I've heard things like the homeless are killing the grass. Really? So the grass is more important than human life. I've heard it said that the employees had a hard time working when the sleep out was outside City Hall because they felt uncomfortable seeing homeless outside. Really? Try sleeping outside for a week and see how uncomfortable you are. The city has had the nerve to say when they were looking at us, they were looking for a nonprofit to work with them. We are a nonprofit and stepping up to work with the city. Do we have to announce publicly our financial profile to gain the city's approval? Since June 2017, HomesNOW has successfully housed 20 people on $18,000, no taxpayers' funds. Reminder, the cost of 2 years of city sweeps on homeless camps was $750,000. We have served the homeless community 800 meals, and we continue to hand out gear and clothing. We've heard council members say camping is high impact and trash and human waste cause problems. Since we've been coming to the city, we've asked for dumpsters and porta pots and been told no. Will the city sanction a proper encampment? No. The city has asked the people to treat the city building as the people's house, unless you're homeless. If they are homeless and asked to leave, we don't govern by demands, and now we have to reseed the grass. You ruined it, camping on it. The city wants to build a 200-bed shelter, a bigger building to hide the homeless. What is the city doing now in real time for the real people who report the community shelters are unsafe? A crying lady told the mayor she was assaulted at the drop-in center. The mayor's response was, "We don't condone that." So the lady asked, "So where do I go then?" The mayor said, "The drop-in center." I take this to mean the city doesn't care. I've heard the mayor and the city council say they care. Well, actions speak louder than words. It is the city's actions that matter. It is the city's failure that Tina died this month. As I see it, the city has failed the homeless. HomesNOW, Not Later, will keep helping the homeless without you or with you, because in reality, you have not helped us, just fought us. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Gustafson, followed by Angela Abbott.
So I was going to say, I think that solving homelessness is a very important issue, and I think that the city and the county and whoever at the local level should definitely get ahead of the problem, because unless something changes in the economy that is going to make it more prosperous for all, it's a problem that's only going to get worse. There's no leadership at the national level to actually solve this problem, so it's up to you guys at the local level to work on it. Now, I know that you guys have said that if you could have solved it already, you would have, but Sometimes it takes just a little bit of creativity, like you thinking outside the box, and you don't need nearly as much money. You don't need $5 million a year sometimes to solve these issues. I mean, there's only, according to the official statistics, there's only about 700 people that are homeless in Bellingham, or in Whatcom. So obviously, working with the county and the city, there's got to be a way that in the short run we could actually do something to help these people, because it was mentioned earlier that at a previous meeting that the camps are littered with human waste but that's because there isn't a safe camping spot to be at. And also, if they had porta potties, they could take a shower and shave, and they'd be able to, and it wouldn't be going into the environment. So it's actually good for the environment to actually implement some of these policies, because not only does it make people's lives easier that are living on the street, but it also has less waste going into the environment. I don't know. I think that there's a lot that can be done, and it'd be great if, we could be partners with you guys. So just something to consider.
Thank you. And forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Ingela Abbott, followed by Daniel Starnes.
Hi, my name is Ingela Abbott, and I'm the owner of Yoga Northwest in Bellingham. And I think it's shameful that we have homeless people. I have traveled around the country in the last 10 years. I didn't see any homeless people in Vietnam, not in Bali, not in Bhutan, not in Scandinavia. But we have a lot of them, and I think it's shameful. And these are human beings I feel we need to help. And so shelters are just a short term. It doesn't really, it's not a long-term thing. What we need is affordable housing. We need counseling, mental counseling, and we need drug rehabilitation. And Jim Peterson's life story really tells how one little thing can lead to another and end people up in the street, but also how affordable housing and counseling can really help people get back into society. So Jim, when he was 19, he was caught with pot. And back then in the 60s, he was going to be put in jail for 3 years or army. He took the army, but to cope with the army, he got into worse drugs, and he got caught and got kicked out of army. His family disowned him too because they were ashamed. So he was without a home. He started hitchhiking around the country. He ended up on the street for 17 years. And he was living out of dumpsters. He was being peed on and spitted at like an animal. And he was surrounded with drugs and violence. And one day, and he was ready to give up on life. One day, a social worker came and found him in a park and said, "Can we help you?" And he said, "Yes, give me some housing." So this person gave her an apartment, and a week later she said, "Can you help me with some mental counseling and drug rehabilitation?" And she did. A month later, he was free from heavy drugs, and he got into a job, but he got a bad accident. He was crushed, and he was in hospital for 6 months, and then he was in coma for 3 months. So he got out of hospital, and after 20 surgeries, that he got rehabilitation. He decided then he was on, what's the word? Anyway, disability, thank you. So then he decided to spend all his time and energy to help homeless people. He knew the hell it was to be on the street, but he also knew that affordable housing is number one to get a stepping stone back into society. So he passionately lobbied around the country. He went to D.C., around the country. He also came and then ended up in Bellingham, got married, got 2 kids. And now last year he started HomesNOW, that he really passionate, want to help homeless people and start building tiny houses. And I'm surprised how passionate people in Bellingham are. Last September, I did my first Century Ride, and it was a fundraising. We pulled together $5,000 in 1 month to help Jim to build houses. So and also when the people that were outside here of the city camping before Christmas, I asked some of the people and they said they were excited about building these tiny houses and that they could learn also a skill. And the other day I saw on YouTube a guy that got into being on the street. He got into a tiny home for the first time, and he had a key that he could lock and shut out all the craziness and have a sane life. So we're asking you, City Council, to help Jim Peterson, to help him get a piece of land, because it costs a lot of money. With police, and with medical, etc.
Let us move on.
Yeah, thank you. So
Namaste and thank you.
We hope you can help. Thank you.
Okay, so next we have Daniel Starnes, followed by John Jolly.
Good evening, everyone. I know that there's a lot of people that want to speak tonight, so I'll try and keep my comments brief. I've lived in Bellingham for 3 years now, and I was I was drawn to the city by how beautiful it is and the sense of community that I get from the people here, and the progressive politics of the place. I fell in love with the city, and I decided to call it my home. I live up on West Maplewood Avenue, kind of on the north side of town. And whenever I need to go downtown, I pass the shelter on Holly Street. And, it seems like every time I go past, there are just dozens and dozens of people kind of milling around, ambling about on the sidewalk. And every time I see them, I just feel a sense of failure. I feel, not their failure, but a collective failure, the whole city's. And I know that homelessness isn't like a problem. It's not like Bellingham's problem. It's a national problem. But a previous speaker said, there's no national leadership on this. And he's right. The federal government's not doing anything about it. So in a place as prosperous and progressive as Bellingham, I feel like we have this tremendous privilege of living in such a place. And I think with that privilege comes a real responsibility to deal with the issues that we're facing. And I think it's possible that we could take a leadership role and that we could end homelessness in Bellingham. This isn't some pie-in-the-sky idea. We have 300, 400 people in the city, maybe more, that sleep on the streets every night. And we have the resources to house them, a warm bed, a hot shower, a locked door. It's possible. We can do it. Homelessness it's not some inherent thing that has to exist. It's a problem that has its causes and it also has its solutions. So I think it's disgraceful that it exists. It's not the city council's fault, but you do have an opportunity to address it in a meaningful way. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Let's go with John Jolly, followed by Lynn Allen.
Hey everybody, I'm John. Thank you for having me. I'm a new member of HomesNOW group, and I'm helping put together a plan for an organized encampment, which we would like an opportunity in a more private setting to lay out a hard plan. And we all know an encampment is not the solution. It's not near the solution. But for some of these folks, it's necessary. And I want to tell you about a story about a guy that I took home with me Christmas that's staying at a camp that we've been working with, trying to help him out. We went to bed. He was in bed for about an hour. And he got up, he had a panic attack. He couldn't even sleep inside. He took his sleeping bag Christmas night out on my front porch and slept. That's another barrier. A lot of these people aren't ready to move right into a transitional system, into housing. You see it time and time again. They get in, it's a big success story. They get in off the street. Within the first month, 2 months, they have some big major violation and they're back at the drop-in center or back getting kicked out of the woods, shuffled around. We've had some success just since we got kicked off the lawn. We started out with 5 guys. Tonight, as of tonight, we have 1 guy in camp that hadn't got off the streets yet, because we've worked with them, we've protected them, and they've got some rest and got an opportunity to reconnect with former employees, or employers, get back going in touch with family. 2 guys got in touch with family and moved out of state. That's not really a success story for us. It's just we helped them relax enough and calm down enough to contact family and reconnect and make that available for them. It can be done. No cost to the local government, I believe. We can do it all privately funded. But fear, if we had permission and y'all would announce permission and cooperation for us to do this, the public wouldn't be afraid to get involved. There's a lot of people wants to help, wants to pull the trigger and come on, let's do something. But they don't want to fight you guys. We need to come up with some kind of compromise. It can be done. It's being done all over the nation. And maybe reevaluate the way the state law is written. A religious organization can control a property. It don't have to be owned. And at no liability to you guys. Check it out. Work with us. Give us an opportunity to present a hard plan to you. Let's work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next we have Lynn Allen, followed by Anton Ziska.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lynn Allen. I've lived in Bellingham for 39 3/4 years. Long time. I really have learned to love this place. Yeah, I just think that we're kind of a model city in a lot of ways and for a lot of things. And I'd love it if we could be a model city for this homeless problem. And I know it's possible. The amount of money that is spent on, sweeps and really doing harm to the homeless. It's a lot of money. And that money could be used to help them, especially since the community is so dedicated to helping them. So many organizations, so many communities here are helping. So many people, so many activists, all colors. I was just so impressed by the People's Movement Assembly and the Mystica that I went to last night at Bellingham High School. And I'm wishing, my heart's desire is that these communities coalesce and really they just have it figured out. They work on one thing at a time, like one tiny house at a time. They work on one project at a time, like getting the homeless lockers, getting the homeless place to do their laundry, and like that. And I know we have all kinds of resources here and all kinds of people that want to get together and do this. And I'd love to see Bellingham be a model for this for the rest of the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, next we have Anton Ziska, followed by Joanne Patters.
Hi, my name is Anton Ziska. I'm a student at Western, and I'm fairly new to the Bellingham community, but this is my first time doing city council, so thank you for having me here. I'm from Kent, and there's not too big of a homeless issue there. However, once I came here, I definitely saw and was surprised at a progressive city like this having such a major homeless issue or low-income issue. And like the gap between low income and high income and middle class being so large. So I am currently here on behalf of a group called CAST, Coffee and Sandwiches Together. We work every day, not work, but volunteer at the Opportunity Council to offer sandwiches and coffee and soups to the homeless and low income of the Bellingham area. And we offer we offer services and sanitary or hygiene supplies to between 20 and 60 up to 80 people per day, which is an awesome program. It's through the St. John's Lutheran Church. However, it's a Band-Aid solution, and it sucks that we have to do this, but it's something that we have to do because otherwise there's no access to food or heat or warm food or warm beverage. And we were just talking to some of them today about how so I'm representing them because they're there right now. They're serving the homeless there while I'm here. And we were just talking to them before I came here, and they were saying like it's really important that this happens because they don't want a shelter. They've definitely experienced bad experiences, including rape and sexual assault at some of these shelters, and they don't want this to be a recurrent thing. They want to have a foundation, to have a more stable, to have more stability in their life, and to be able to move up. And they can't do that unless they are able to have sustainable housing. And there are many people that are infuriated by this. There are many people that want to see change in a city as progressive as this. They want to see Bellingham look up to Seattle and Portland and other places that are having serious homeless issues and look at that they announce that they're having a state of emergency, that this is a huge issue that needs to be addressed so that we can look for better housing for low-income and homeless peoples. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we have Joanne Patters, followed by Michael Stuthoff.
Hi, my name is Joanne Pattern, and I've been working some with HomesNOW, but homeless people, trying to help them as best I can. I've been in Bellingham Housing Authority for about 20 years. I raised my kids at Varsity Village, and now I'm at Prince Court Apartments. My kids are grown, obviously. Speaking with a lot of the homeless people, the way they spend their day, they wake up, and especially in the winter, they wake up and they imagine and they throw away what got wet as the night went on. So if you can imagine waking up and the first thing you do is first try and find a place to go to the bathroom without getting in trouble. If they're near businesses, they try and find a bathroom. And next they go through their things and they decide what they throw away. If you can imagine what your things are there what got wet over the night, you throw those away and you start over. And then after that, they go through and they find how their day is going to go, where they're going to get their next meal, what they're going to eat, if they have to eat something that someone else threw away, if they have food stamps at all, if they have any change or any money at all to get some kind of food, where are they going to get clothes for the day or warm things that they didn't have yesterday, they had to throw away, where they're going to sleep that night, bathrooms they're going to find to use to clean up because they have no showers, they have no way to wash up. I can't even imagine how they're doing that. Washing clothes is not even an option. They just try and get different clothes for the most part. Getting a job is not an option. They have no place to put things. How do you go get a job and carry your things into a job interview or someplace to apply for a job? That's, for the most part, that's impossible. Spending your day this way every day is exhausting. It takes a toll. It takes your dignity. After a while, you're just exhausted every day living this way. It just is. You understand how they can eventually just get to why not do drugs. It just gets to a point where if you know how your daily life gets to where you, at the end of your stressful day, you go, can't wait to get home and have a drink. I just want to have a beer. You want to have a glass of wine, whatever you do, they get to where, why not? Why not? Imagine just trying to stay strong and trying to get through. Anyway, they need a place. They need tiny homes. They need land. And why are we not declaring a state of emergency to get them this, get them land, get a home, get a tent city, get them outhouses, get them, get them water and a bathroom. That's all they're asking for. They're asking for dignity and some place to sleep at night. Let them go to sleep and not get swept out. Get on some dignity, common sense.
Thank you, Joanne. Next, we've got Michael Stuthoff and Seth Mangold.
My name is Michael Studoff, and I'm a 29-year resident in Bellingham County. The existing options for the homeless are not adequate support. The mission is the sole option for many people. Talking to a homeless student, he described how tumultuous of an environment the mission is and how difficult it is to study and keep up with school. In the struggle for dignity and self-worth, students and other community members face much harassment every day at the mission. For the emotionally unstable and those with mental health conditions, they would rather face the elements and dangers of camping outside, struggling with basic needs, than stay in the same vicinity as their harassers. Many women are in danger at this facility. Those who have been raped are forced to stay with their attacker or or if they care to seek shelter. The women who haven't had issues are forced to be around these men and will be greater at risk of being raped. This is not only destitute women we most often picture as homeless people, but moms, daughters, and our family members who have home today will face homelessness tomorrow or are facing it as we speak, as our rental situation and cost of living spins out of control. Trans people are also greatly at risk at the mission, as they are often outcasted from their families and kicked out to the curb. Being the religious nonprofit that they are, they don't recognize trans people as a gender they identify, forcing them to be in dangerous and uncomfortable positions, on top of the fact that it's up to the egos of the mission staff whether or not an individual has a sanctuary or risks freezing to death in Whatcom County. These are all valuable reasons why this should not be the only secure home for those facing homelessness. The city does nothing but claim these nonprofits as their contribution to homelessness, when in reality all they do is fine and incarcerate homeless people, spending outrageous amounts of money chasing them around town from camp to camp. For solutions of a temporary self-police camp with a funded porta potties and dumpster, as HomesNOW have requested, there's a perfect site at the city-owned lot on Samish Way where the Aloha once stood. It has good visuals from all sides for safety and police monitoring. It is located on a high-speed boulevard that is very undesirable to walk, and as I'm sure from viewing your attitudes, that the city will be more reluctant to put what they consider to be less desirable citizens in less desirable urban space. The lot is already fenced off and is not public land, as you label a setback being public property. We could simply add a gate to the fence so that the homeless camp can keep themselves exclusionary and easily self-policed. Also on the boulevard is a perfect for the recently homeless families is the empty St. Luke's Hospital. The taxpayers are currently paying for the operation of this facility of both security and utilities for the several offices in this building. We must look to Seattle as an example, who built 2 all-in-services-in-one navigation centers for homeless and mental health, which are greatly linked. We have no mental health options in this county besides the limited bed, volunteer commitment, St. Joe's Psych Ward. People's other option is jail, abuse by jailers, and solitary confinement with deprivation of medication that they need. I lost a close friend suffering with manic depression at the hands of these jailers in Whatcom County Jail. Why do we have to wait for a new jail before we can address these mental health concerns? Utilize the facilities we have and provide a navigation center and mental health facility by pushing for the cost-effective renovation of St. Luke's Hospital in Ellis and Chestnut. We need healthy options for homeless sincerely looking to improve their lives and escape homelessness. We need healthy options for those with mental health concerns besides the jail, misunderstanding, and abuse by jailers.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we have Seth Mangold and Joanne Pattern.
Good evening. I, too, stand here in solidarity and support of our homeless community. I had the privilege to get to know many of them when we had the camp out here in front of City Hall. I was told that it was the first time that they had felt comfortable, feeling safe. They were able to build community. People who wanted to help were able to know exactly where to go to be able to provide that help. I was able to provide food. Others were able to provide gear. We are really in a state of emergency here in this county and this city especially. And that would open up the doors to actually be able to get easements on lands, to be able to put a tent at city where we've had, just like we did here at City Hall, people would be able to feel safe. We'd be able to provide porta potties and dumpsters so there wouldn't be the environmental degradation issue. And then when it comes to the drop-in center, just like we've heard, it doesn't work for everybody. It's not safe, so the 200-bed proposal is not going to work for everybody. If you were to make a meal for 700 people, you wouldn't expect to adequately feed them with their dietary issues, their taste issues, their cultural issues. It wouldn't be appropriate. So I urge you to do more, declare a state of emergency, and work with HomesNOW, not later. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Joanne Pattern, and then we'll take Margaret Hashimi. There was a Patters, and then there's a Pattern. Okay. So then Margaret Hashimi. Hashmi, sorry.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. My name is Margaret Hoshmi, and I'm from Bellingham, Washington. And I think there's many things that you can do, but some things take longer. One thing that we could do here in Bellingham is to provide lockers so the homeless don't have to lug all of their belongings around wherever they go. And I think this could be done just with a couple of parking spaces and solve that particular problem and then move on to other issues that are more difficult to solve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Council, we have 11 more, and there are 2 other issues that people want to bring up. I'm inclined to hear it now. Would that be okay? What's the wish? Okay. We're going to continue and get through our list, but we're going to stick to the list this evening. So if your name did not get on the list, I encourage you to email us because we're just as receptive to that type of input. So next we have Maureen, I can't read the last name, Darvis, possibly? Please.
Go. So I wanted to open this by saying that many of us here are settlers on colonized land, and it's not your right to choose who lives here and who has resources and how they're allocated, but due to white supremacy, it is your job. So with that in mind, this is about your vision for how the community and the government interact with each other. And honestly, to see a community organizing themselves, assessing their problems, offering solutions, bringing them to you, and to find out that consistently their rights to advocate for themselves and choose how their elected officials respond are denied is an outrage to me. I think that you're faced with an opportunity to join a community that is full of some of the most resilient people I've ever met, and you're choosing instead to feel stymied by red tape and bureaucracy. And I wanted to know how that felt, because personally, when a job makes me feel helpless and hopeless and unable to respond, I haven't done very well in that position. And speaking with the homeless that came to the People's Movement Assembly yesterday, I felt incredibly moved, inspired, in awe of the resilience of the human spirit and the creativity and the willingness to make do with not very much and do a lot. The last thing I wanted to say is I just am shocked. This is not the first time you're hearing this. There's this narrative of, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I can't believe that we still put on that show. We've seen the homeless every single day. This is not the first time you're finding out that it's difficult to wear a backpack. It's not the first time you're finding out that it's difficult to find a restroom. I think at the end of the day, if you can accept conditions, living conditions, safety conditions, health conditions for those who are currently homeless that you wouldn't accept for yourself or your loved ones, it's because on some level there's a bias, and that's an opportunity to uncover it in yourself and become a better person. I chose not to be nice and appeal to the ego because I think this is just the truth, and the time has come to speak the radical truth. And like Jim said, and the folks who are organizing, this is going to happen with or without the support of City Council. And I'm honored that they want community organizers and activists to be a part of it. And as government, you should be honored that they're still trusting you and inviting you into the process. I'm Maureen Darris. I forgot to identify myself at the start.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Kelly Hall, followed by Andy Douglas and Jamie Douglas.
Hi, I'm Kelly Hall. I'm a student at Western, and I'm going to make this quick because I know you've heard every story, and you've heard every statistic, and you've heard every solution, and yet you still haven't listened to anyone. I grew up here, and I love it dearly, and it both breaks my heart and outrages me how close-minded you have all been towards any real efforts tackling the problem of homelessness in our community. It seems, though, that you, who we elected as problem solvers and civil servants, have turned your heads to the pleas of your people. Do you forget that you do not only represent the housed? In failing to support some of our community members, you have failed our community as a whole. But we will stand together, helping each other with or without you. And when or if your conscience decides to kick in, we have told you what we want, we have told you what we need, and so you'll know what to do. But we can't keep waiting for answers. If your plan is homeless camp sweeps and a 200-bed shelter, and that's it, I ask you to take a look at the obvious failure this has been the past 20 years here and around the U.S. to see how primitive of a solution that is. You've got to be smarter than that. Nothing will ever change if our plans and solutions and actions don't change. What you have in place is such a dangerously ineffective plan that it's insulting and embarrassing to even think that that's the best you can do. I can't conceive of what goes through your head to put homeless camp sweeps and a 200-bed shelter down on paper as a real official solution. It's baffling. I'd really like to think Bellingham is progressive, but you prove to me that our government is just as archaic and corrupt as anywhere. But our people are not. And as you continue to close your eyes and your ears to our demands, we will never stop fighting for each other. As much as we'd like to work with you, we will work around you, and we will work in spite of you. And we will bring comprehensive solutions to end homelessness now. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Andy Douglas, followed by Jamie Douglas and Carmen Gilmore.
Hi, my name is Andy Douglas, and I live in Bellingham. And I do support the Homes Now, Not Later. I do think that a shelter and a camping area is a good initial step. But as we've mentioned in many previous hearings, it would be great if we would support the development of more boarding houses, single-room occupancy hotels. And there's an article here, is homelessness a housing problem? And I agree that it is. This was from the early 90s. They have a conclusion that says that it would be a sound idea or a halfway point between an overnight shelter and a single residency occupancy hotel to have a cubicle hotel, which would provide minimum floor space and other amenities and some degree of privacy. This goes beyond the idea of a small shelter, which there are risks to that, to a place where people would actually have walls that would make them safe, even though it would be a small space. And I was a hippie, so I lived outside for 6 months when I was younger, and I have to say that having walls is one of the ways that most of us feel safe when we're sleeping. It keeps our bodies safer, it keeps our things safer, and having a place to leave our stuff during the day frees us up to find jobs. And I know that many people that are homeless are not able to work due to disabilities, but many of them are actually working poor. And as you all already know from previous hearings, I've heard you say this, as the rents go up, the homelessness rate goes up. And the poverty rate was dropping in the United States until 1974, I believe, and it stayed stable to 1978, and then the poverty rate has been going up ever since then. Back when this article was written, the age expectancy of a homeless man was 53 years old, and I don't think it's better now. So thank you very much for the work you have done in this. I've been at prior meetings where you've discussed this, and you have a heart for this issue. But I do think that we need more than just a homeless shelter and even a camping space. Those two things would be a good initial start. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Next, we have Jamie Douglas, followed by Carmen Gilmore and Lou Peterson / Dale Whipple.
Hi, I'm Jamie Douglas. You don't have to go any further than Wikipedia to find the sad truth that homelessness is an issue that's been created by public policy. It's happened slowly over a long period of time where we've decided to not put money and funds into the different kinds of programs that keep people from being homeless and support people who find themselves drifting into homelessness. Years ago there was a Fram oil commercial that said, hey, you should change your oil in your car regularly because it's a pay me now or pay me later situation. And if you pay me later, you pay me a lot more. We're kind of treating our communities and neighborhoods that way, that we want to save money, and we talk about how expensive it is to do things, when the reality is that the amount of public funds and damage that's done is so much greater than what it will cost to go ahead and address the situation. You've already heard people talk about the fact that if you go to other places in the world, you might find it very difficult to find a homeless person. There's a reason for that. I don't lay this on your lap and blame you, because you are our representatives as a community. I think our whole community has to own the fact that we have allowed ourselves to drift into this situation. And we have tried to say, well, we'll let nonprofits step in, the churches will step in, private charity, all these things will step in. It's time we as a community, through our elected officials and through the programs that we can put in place here, decide to change the oil in our engine.
Thank you, Jamie. Next we have Carmen Gilmore, followed by Lou and Dale, and then Amy Glasser.
Carmen Gilmore, Bellingham resident. I have the privilege of being housed. I'm using that privilege tonight, along with my other privileges, to amplify the voices of those in our city who do not have a house, who do not have a place to call home. Here are some of the things people in our community who are experiencing homelessness are asking for: affordable housing and/or shelter, designated housing for Section 8 voucher holders, specialized shelter for special needs, access to toilets 24/7, access to free storage 24/7, a safe, permitted place to park vehicles, a safe, permitted place to tent camp, land to build tiny homes, employment, access to free, high-quality childcare. We are asking the City Council and Mayor to take action now for our brothers and sisters who are living outside. Our community members are dying on our streets. Let's let that sink in for a moment. Dying on our streets. This is not okay. We can do better than this. We must do better than this. Please, please declare a state of emergency if necessary. Please work with us. Work with our community members like HomesNOW, Not Later, who are coming to you with solutions and asking for your help. Please think outside the box and take a chance on doing things differently. And please, please prioritize the voices of the most vulnerable and marginalized in our community as you proceed with your work on behalf of the people of Bellingham. It is only when the needs of our most vulnerable and marginalized are met that we will be succeeding as a city and community. Until then, we must treat this homelessness crisis as the emergency that it is. Please, 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 no more people dying on our streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Lou Peterson and Dale Whipple, followed by Amy Glasser, and then Zach Nelson.
My name is Louis Peterson. I'm a program coordinator and human resource director for a nonprofit here, Evergreen Supported Living. And one of my friends here has a concern he wanted to bring to the council about the crosswalks on Fraser Street. And it's very dangerous. There's a lot of high-speed traffic, and a lot of it's the coming around the curve, and people can't see. And there's a lot of, I suppose, slow-moving people sometimes, and disabled people and elderly people that live there, and it's getting kind of dangerous. We were wondering if the council would ponder studying about putting up one of the crosswalks like they have on U Street and things, where you push the button and the light comes on, especially at night when people come around. There's a lot of people walking back and forth there. So my friend Dale Whipple here had something he wanted to say.
Hey, I'm Dale Whipple, and I'm a 34-year resident of Bellingham, Washington. And I'm just concerned about cautious and safety out in our Whatcom County with a lot of the pedestrians and bicyclists, people that need to be able to get across the street safety, and traffic just not willing to concentrate or look to see how people are out there without accessibles, with wheelchairs, or, they make it across the street so that they are seen and connected with and stuff. And I got also some pictures in here of Fraser, and also 3 sheets of signatures from petition people that I had signed and stuff. And I would like it if you can maybe come up with a way to get more crosswalks and bike lanes and a few crosswalk light signs in Whatcom County, just so it makes everyone's job easy and the drivers have more chance and ability of paying more close attention and safetiness. Okay, that's Whipple, and thanks for having me here. Great.
There's pages of petitions and a couple photographs of what he's really talking about, especially the term there for the council to look at.
And then some notes here from people.
And also some notes for people. Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We really appreciate it. And Heishka for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Amy Glasser, followed by Zach Nelson, and then Shelley Grant.
Amy Glasser, Bellingham, Washington. It's now over a month since you've evicted the people living in front of City Hall. You've heard the concerns as to why many people without homes won't go to the mission. You've heard about rapes, assaults, thefts, diseases, and way too many people there with PTSD. You've heard about how a low-barrier shelter is great for those who are using, but not so great for those who are trying not to use. You've heard about how the mission is a religious organization, and some people are not comfortable with the mission's mission. You've heard about how 2 public toilets in town are locked at 10 p.m., leaving people at risk of being arrested for sex offenses if they have to relieve themselves. You say you care about women, Mayor Linville, at the march the other day, yet you're allowing women to go around after 10 p.m. not having a toilet to go pee in, not having a place to go to the bathroom in, not having a place if they've got their period for the month to go change. That's how much you care about the women in this town. You heard about how people would be delighted to have dumpsters available so they didn't have to leave garbage around. You've heard about how HomesNOW was able to keep 25 to 30 tent city in front of your city hall, clean, safe, and supported by a community. If you listened, you heard. We were loud and clear, and so sorry if we disturb businesses, usually in City Hall. We're so sorry. That was the point. Well, we listened and we heard. Now where are we? Nowhere. You all continue to focus on building a 200-bed low-barrier shelter. You all continue to say go to the mission if you want to get out of the cold. You continue to ignore the dignity to have some toilets in town open all night and dumpsters to put trash in. You'd prefer to spend $500,000 a year sweeping camps. You continue to ignore the people living outside despite many calls and emails asking you to help the people living outside. Those were from the nice people in town. Now you've got me. Nobody's heard back from you. No one responded. We wrote to all of you. You continue to say it takes time to make changes. You continue to say there are laws and rules you have to follow. You continue to ignore your mandate to take care of the community and all of the community. The saddest part is you, Mayor Linville, who can declare a state of emergency today. With a stroke of a pen, you can do what's right, just like Portland and Seattle, only on a smaller scale, doable. A state of emergency can allow you to identify locations for tents. The few campers are still being evicted. 6 places, most recently today, and they have nowhere to go. Their tent is sitting outside your office. You can place dumpsters around in water stations. You can build tiny homes. You can do whatever you want with the state of emergency. You just have to do it. If it was your community, your street that burned down, you damn well bet you'd have a FEMA tent camp right in Maritime Park. You'd have everything you needed. And now you're not doing it for the homeless, and shame on you. Shame on all of you when you could do something today. And if you all think you're progressives, you just wait till you try to get elected again as a progressive.
Time. Next we have Zach Nelson, Shelley Grant, followed by Coley Bosch.
Hi, my name is Zachary Nelson. Oh, hello. Whoop, whoop. Hi, my name is Zach Nelson.
Let people speak, thank you.
Sorry, what?
I just said please let people speak, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Wait, me?
Can we start the time over?
Oh, sorry.
We're going to start your time over.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
All right, hi, my name is Zach. I was on the street, but thanks to the guys over at HomesNOW, I had access to a camp for a few days when I needed it. That was a nice, clean, safe place, and that was awesome. Of course, they have since been evicted by the police. Anyway, I'm going to be a bit of a dissenting voice here. I'm with you guys. You guys are doing great. You see, let's start off with something that we all know. $1 is someone's worth as a human being. The more of those things you have, the better of a person that you are. And money itself has no attached inherent morality. A profit is its own justification. So even though we absolutely could fix homelessness here, totally could. It would save the city money. It would save the county money. We cannot do that. Why? Because that money would come out of the pockets of the police and out of hospitals. And those people are your clients. We cannot disappoint them. Oh no, if we made it easy for people to get off of the streets, the middle class wouldn't be so scared to death of being in our position. Oh no, we gotta keep them scared so they keep going with the status quo. You know, how dare homeless people try to opt out of the day-to-day capitalism of earning a wage, of paying rent, which is also taxable income? Well, we have to make money off of them somehow. So let's make everything that they do just to live, just to survive, illegal. There we go. Easy targets everywhere. Makes the police job easier, gets them funding, gets the hospitals funding, helps the pharmaceutical industry. Someone's got to be ingesting all that naltrexone. Someone needs that Suboxone, you know what I mean? We all know that addiction is a very environmental thing, so we got to make people miserable out on the streets so that they turn to drugs and alcohol. It makes money. It puts money in the pockets of people who have very, very powerful lobbies. So, you know, sure, tiny homes have been proved to be, to work. Look at Dignity Village. Look at Opportunity Village, both in Oregon. Yeah, it's a different state, but I believe there's a tiny homes village involved with Nicholsville out in Seattle. They seem like they're doing well. Just the idea of a place that can be transitional where people can go and feel safe and not worry about violence or drugs, that would help people get off the street. And we can't have that now, can we? No. The reason why homelessness exists is because it is profitable, just like how any other problem of society continues to exist. Someone's making money off of it. People are making money off of us. We're just a commodity. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please stop clapping because we want to respect everybody's opinion, please. We just have 3 more names to get through, and we are happy to hear all of this input. Shelley Grant, followed by Coley Bosch and Jamie Carnell, possibly?
Hi, Shelley Grant, co-founder and communications director of Cascadia Volunteer Advocacy, a local homeless outreach nonprofit. I'm also formerly homeless. And what I want to know is where our compassion has gone. Homeless people are freezing to death, starving to death. These are brothers and mothers and lovers, human beings with dreams, hopes, desires, and we are killing them by failing to care for our community. We all share the responsibility and have blood on our hands, blood of the homeless on our hands. But you, the council, bear the brunt of this responsibility by continuing to criminalize homelessness. If the council does not declare a state of emergency, then you have to manage to go to sleep tonight knowing that you are responsible for murdering homeless people. I can barely sleep at night, and I don't have the same power that you do. I'm sick of my friends dying. I'm sick of them being stigmatized, dehumanized, and blatantly murdered. And I demand that you take action, find your compassion, and declare a state of emergency.
Thank you. Next, we have Coley Bosch and Jamie Carnell.
Hello, my name is Cody Bosch, and I'm a resident of Bellingham. It's been my experience that most people, the majority of people, just want the opportunity to show what they have to offer to society, to have the foundation in order to give back and to be contributing members of the community. And in order to do this, they need to have the buoying forces such as affordable housing, living wage, employment, these sorts of things. And I've been homeless on the street of Bellingham before. I've been homeless in other cities as well, and I now have sort of a ADU situation, and I run a small landscaping business for older folks in the county. And I just found out about Tina Vanderwood's passing, and we went to high school together at Ferndale High School. And Tina, I believe that she was at the camp that was out here at City Hall. I walked by and I saw her, and I had ran into her a few times over the years, and she was on the street of Bellingham for almost 10 years, and she was a person that was always trying and always striving to improve her situation. She had a couple kids, and she was born with she was born to a family in Ferndale, and she had some congenital defects which affected her neurology, but she was always trying, and she was such an inspiration and a force of light and goodness. And I remember I would run into her, and she would tell me how she was trying to stay at the mission, and she had been sexually, I believe, raped, and how she felt unsafe, and she would ask me for what I could do, and I would do what I could for her at that time. But like I say, I just found out a couple hours ago that she passed away because this harsh winter, she froze to death, or she died on our streets. And that is a really tragic, I don't even know how to wrap my head around it yet. But like I say, it's my experience that people desire the opportunity to become healthy, to become contributing members of society. And I believe what we are asking you for is the opportunity to show you how much we have to give, to show you how much we can contribute to the diversity and strength that we have in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Cody. Okay, so the last name on the list is Jamie Cornell, sorry.
Thank you. Jamie Cornell, resident of Bellingham. Am I able to make two comments on two topics? Okay. One, I would like to speak on the topic of this evening. A lot of passionate people. Appreciate all your comments. I think one was said about compassion. I think most of us have turned our hearts to stone. We've seen that with the election last year. And I think we're in a state of just a lot of cynicism and pessimism. And what I would say is, in your role, you've taken on a tremendous responsibility, which requires a lot from you. And this matter is obviously very serious, as it's a national matter. One thing about Bellingham that Herald reported last year, I believe, was that this is the #1 city for foreign investment money for real estate. You look at South Hill, and you look at Bayside, and you look at Wacom, there's a lot of tax money. Unfortunately, our system is set up where taxation is, part of our life, and this problem is going to require more money, and there's a lot of money in this town. We have the richest two people in the world 90 miles from us, and there's Canada and Chinese money coming into this city, and unfortunately, it's going to come down to taxation. That's what's going to have to happen. So with that, no one likes the word taxes, but frankly, someone's got to pay for it, and tremendous leaderships need to be paid to make homelessness a non-issue for Bellingham and for the rest of the country. The last comment I'd like to make, I'm looking for guidance. I live on 32nd Street, and we've had 2 fatalities just about a half a mile down the road, a bicyclist, and then 2 people speeding on a road, racing. Routinely, we have Wacom Transit drivers going down the road 50 to 60 miles an hour by Joe's Garden. I've talked to the city traffic engineer. I've talked to the police for months with nothing done, no speed checks or whatnot. I know the average speed's about, they say, is 28 or 30, but they've also have that 15% is at 38 miles an hour, but I live on the street, and I've seen cars pass on the other side of the lane with the bus, going around the bus. There's a lot of bikers. There's a ton of development. There's about a 30-unit apartment building being built on the street as well, so we have semis all day long. I've been told with the classification of the street, there can't be any sort of speed barriers or bumps or whatnot. I would like to see if there'd be any reconsideration on that, just due to the amount of speed that's drivers are driving down that road. So thank you.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind. I would just like to make a comment in part based upon the public comment we received today. The presentation today had to do with civil legal aid to people with low income and no income. And it's motivated by an understanding of the systemic and interacting ways that people who are economically disadvantaged are affected. Without free legal help, many of these people, if they're not already homeless, enter a cycle that leads to homelessness. That was part of the discussion this afternoon. I mention this because although there's an important focus on housing itself, this council in part established a justice committee. I'm putting words maybe in our mouth here, because we understand the interacting nature of justice issues, social issues, poverty issues that interact not just for the homeless, but also for low-income people who are threatened with homelessness or housing insecure. So, I mean, the reason why the city council dealt with this issue in part is because of our sensitivity to the broader issues that affect housing and poverty in our community. I wanted to say that in part in response to many of the comments we received this evening.
So the third item is an interdepartmental presentation on the city's response to addressing homelessness in Bellingham. Frequently, people misunderstand all of the work that we're trying to do to solve homelessness. It's not just one simple answer, and it's not one simple solution, and it's certainly not just throwing money at it. We're trying so many different measures, from work with our police department, our homeless outreach team that works on the street, the housing levy that was approved by the voters, of which we use to improve the number of units that are for affordable housing, and then also to upkeep the existing units. And even our library is figuring out all the ways that they can be the most inclusive library imaginable and a safe place for people to enjoy. But I really want people to understand that we're really trying with this, and I'd encourage any council members, if you want to weigh in on this in any way to help our community understanding, especially if I forgot to list anything. I'd appreciate that. Councilmember Himmel, please.
Sure. So the city has a community paramedic program, and I know that Jeff Brubaker, our community paramedic, was here today and talked about how he responds, and there's about 22% of his clients are homeless. I work with the mayor and Councilmember Lilliquist on the Homeless Strategies Work Group. We work with the county executive and 2 county council members, as well as industry professionals, on trying to figure out a location for the shelter in partnership with Lighthouse Mission Ministries, which does not require a religious component for staying at that facility. This would be their low barrier shelter. As the campaign manager for the 2012 levy that brought in $21 million for housing, which has been leveraged 12 times over. The community has spoken in terms of its desire to support housing options for those that are unhoused. In addition to the items that Council President Murphy had mentioned, there also is a service component as well. So there's money that goes towards services to help people stay in their housing and to not become homeless again. This community responds through a number of different ways to working on homelessness. Our volunteer rate is over 60%. We make the rest of the country look like they're standing still when it comes to volunteering. A lot of those volunteers work in soup kitchens, they work at the food bank, they work in shelters, and they definitely contribute back to their community. Every year, about 500 people are served through Project Homeless Connect. This will be our 10th year this year. We see some familiar faces, we see a lot of new people as well, and there's about 250 people that volunteer every year. So we've helped thousands of people who are homeless get critical human services that they need right away. And part of the framework for Project Homeless Connect is immediacy and community and partnership and hospitality, and our volunteers deliver that every year. So I don't want to belabor the point, but there is a lot going on with homelessness. Every person in this council and the mayor herself are absolutely concerned as the highest priority right now for sheltering our unsheltered neighbors. People talked about compassion tonight. I think that there's plenty of compassion here. The route and the pathway to get to solving a national issue that began in the early 80s with the Reagan administration's not delivering behavioral health dollars to communities, getting everyone out of institutions, and then failing on the promise to help those individuals once they're out in the community. This is a systemic problem. We are a West Coast city that's highly desirable. The rents keep going up. Every time rents go up by $100 in West Coast communities, homelessness goes up by 6%. There's nothing, that's a fact. Washington State Department of Commerce has studied this issue inside and out and made a presentation to the council at our open house back in June of last year. Yeah, I've been personally involved with this issue for about 10 years. I was the co-founder for Project Homeless Connect. I also co-founded a virtual furniture bank that provides furniture donations for our community's Housing First rapid housing remodel, so people can come in and have a bed to sleep in and things like that, and children can have a table to eat at. To suggest that the council is not compassionate is to me, I don't understand that. I mean, every person here cares about every neighbor here. That's why we're doing this job. So I just wanted to add those pieces. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take Councilmember Borneman and Councilmember Knudsen.
It's hard to say it much better, Dan, and I just want to kind of add to that. You know, some of us have spent our whole lives, or our whole working lives, working on some of these issues around homelessness, around the mental health issues, and drug issues. We've given most of our lives towards that. At least two of us on this council come from a position of homelessness in our past. So to say there's not compassion is a rough statement to hear, because we know what that's like. We know how hard it is, and we wish we had some simple answers for that. But we have set, on my 18 years on this council, I've sat and watched year after year as the federal government has reduced the amount of money coming to the states and to the cities for the issues around housing, around the mental health money, around drug money. And we see it reduced on the state level, and it's being reduced every year on the upper levels, and it falls on finally to the city. And we are contributing, if you look at how much money we are contributing right now on the issues for low-income housing, towards homelessness, we're doing basically what we can with the money that we've got and leveraging it, as Dan said, 12 to 1 on the dollars that we have. I hope people will look. I understand when you're in a situation and you're out there, this is the most important thing in the world, because it is. This is your life. But as a council, we have to serve a whole city. All of the residents, we have to provide the funding for all the services. And we are trying to do the best we can to find these solutions, but we alone on the city level aren't going to correct it. As we've seen from the reports on the issues related to homelessness, related to mental health, related to drug problems, the city isn't the provider for mental health. We don't have those services. We are not the providers on drug treatment. But we're trying to put in place services that can direct people to that. Unfortunately, those services aren't being funded from the state and federal level at the levels they need to be to deal with this. We went through this great recession, I'll say depression. It started the big downfall from it, and we've never received the proper help on the federal level to help rebuild from that. And there's just so much that we can do. We need to continue working and work hard to try to do it. But we're not alone. We're not going to be able to totally solve the issues. I wish we could. I wish it was as easy as some would say. We can solve that right away. It's not. Folks, we're trying as hard as we can, and that's what I can say.
Councilmember Knudsen.
Yes, you know, one of the great things about the city we live in is that you have 7 council members and a mayor and a staff that come here every other Monday night and listen to the people come to the podium. They can get up there pretty much and in a civil way rip us all apart any way they want to. Now, I've been driving the same way to City Hall for 25 years. Tonight, for some reason, I decided to drive in front of the building, which I never do. I always drive in the back of the building. So I drive around and I look up to the right, and there's a neon sign that said, City Council answer to homelessness is death. That's just not fair. It's not fair to all of us up here. It's not fair to the mayor. It's not fair to our staff. It's not fair to anybody. This mayor took tremendous, tremendous action by allowing that camp to stay for as long as she did. She was patient. She didn't get upset. She didn't order them out. She asked for guidance from the council, and we gave it to her. Now, we're all in this together, folks, and if you want to work with us and if you want to help us, don't use the rhetoric that we heard here tonight. It's not helpful, but it's your right. You can come up and do it. I'm not going to hold it against you at all. I understand how passionate everybody gets on this issue, but I just want to take us back to 1989. The city of Bellingham operated a homeless shelter in the old Sears and Roebuck automotive park. They took tremendous strides to do that. And when I first ran for office in 1993, we had over 1,800 homeless in Whatcom County. This issue just didn't happen overnight. It's been going on, as Terry said, for decades. And we've always tried to do everything we can possibly do to help us get through with this. So let's just tone it down, try to work with us, give us the time we need. It's not going to be solved overnight. And the thing that really gets to me more than anything, for some reason, there's only one city in Whatcom County, and it's named Bellingham. There's Linden, there's Ferndale, there's Sumas, there's Nooksack. We need to involve everybody in this and our partners across the street. Now, I hope that they will live up to what I heard them say last Tuesday night, that they want to be in this too, okay? Let's work together. County, come across the street, or we go across the street, and we try to, but this is a Whatcom County problem. It is just not a Bellingham problem. But try to work with us and maybe tone it down. I understand you get upset. I've gotten that way too, but I feel for everybody else other than myself. I've heard it all in the last 25 years, so you can say whatever you want to me. But to the people that I work with, come on, folks. We're better than that.
Go ahead, Councilmember Lundquist.
I guess I want to make a comment on part of the challenge that I feel I face up here, which is the tension between short-term and long-term solutions. One of the battles that we've had up here in adjusting how we spend the housing levy dollars is how much of that goes towards immediate services and rental support to get someone off of the street, and how much goes towards long-term brick-and-mortar solutions. And I've been an advocate for the long-term brick-and-mortar solutions. I mean, you've heard it here tonight by people supporting the homeless people. They know shelters aren't a great solution. They know that tent camps aren't a permanent solution either. They may be an important, essential stopgap measure, Band-Aid, someone called it. But we also need these people, everyone, to move into permanent affordable housing. That's why the housing levy helped pay for Via Santa Fe for farm workers. It helped to pay for emergency safe shelter services for victims of domestic violence. The city has supported Francis Place, which is supportive housing for the most troubled homeless individuals who need continuous support. The housing levy supported the Eleanor Apartments. That's for low-income seniors, and we're currently supporting, I think it's the 22 North project, which will have beds available both for homeless youth, that is under age 25, as well as for homeless veterans, which is a population we targeted several years ago. I've just mentioned a wide range of populations we're trying to fit. It's not all about a 200-bed shelter. We are trying to hit this at many levels all at the same time. It may not be enough, but we're trying, and me personally, I strongly favor long-term permanent solutions. I strongly favor, whenever possible, putting up a building that'll be there for the next 50 years that will house people night after night, day after day. And as much as I see the need for an emergency shelter here and now, that tent won't be there for 50 years, but that constructed building may be. And so I lean that way as much as we can afford to do, but still take care of today.
Just a couple things that I want to add to. As a member of the Nooksack Indian tribe, I'm uniquely concerned about this as I see tribal members on the streets, what I want to do to help with that, the commitment that I've had to this. I've worked on this issue with other cities. I spent my treaty day today, of which the rest of my tribe had off, and I came here to work. I will continue to come here to work. And my dedication is to this issue and so many issues that we need to solve for so many of the social injustices that many of us experience. But we also have to focus on what we can do as a city. You know, I watch what other cities do with homelessness, and I envy some of their programs. I hope someday we can have the funding structures so we can do things like go up to people on the street and say, do you want a job today? We need this park cleaned up. You want to help out? You can earn a wage. There's stuff like this that's going on, but it has to be right-sized and it has to fit within our financial framework. But again, I hope we're going to have more funding for this, especially as the community has spoken and it wants better services for housing, for affordable housing, for homelessness support, and definitely for mental health and substance abuse support. And that's what I'm committed to. Mayor Kelly, did you want to say something?
I'll save my comments for my mayor's report. Go ahead.
Thank you. And Mayor Kelly, would you like to make
Say
your proposal?
something? Well, first of all, I want to thank the community members that came tonight to support what I believe is a vulnerable population in our city. As you all know, we've been investing, finding solutions for this for a long time, and it's not enough. And I don't think anybody, including me, would say it was. So I was interested to listen to some of the comments, which are a lot of what we have talked about for a long time, but not necessarily been able to do. And the first one was St. Luke's. How often have we brought up St. Luke's and talked to Peace Health? And we actually got $1 million 2 years ago and offered it to Peace Health to do some remodeling in that facility so that we could use it for homeless, for mental health, and for treatment. And they have other plans for the hospital, which we don't have any control over because it is their property, but we did offer that to them. And we continue to work with them on making sure that whatever they invest there is going to help the people in our community that need it the most. We have people that will put in lockers, tiny homes, tent cities, And a lot of it means we have to find a location. That's kind of the rub. And that brings me to what I wanted to bring to you today, which is an emergency ordinance for, an emergency ordinance to allow temporary tent encampments on land owned or leased by religious organizations. Now, this is the easiest emergency ordinance to provide. I believe because of public health and safety, we need some rules, and the rules really apply to large camps. If we have smaller camps or tiny houses or, not large facilities, then the planning and community development director can waive any of the rules that exist. So this does not mean that every opportunity for a tiny home or a tent city or a tent encampment needs to meet all the rules. I believe that the other opportunity we have, and it would be something that the council would have to discuss with me, would be, do we want to open up any Bellingham public property for those same purposes? And we can do that, and we will have emergency rules in place that would allow us to do it if we can adopt those today. It'll take us 6 months to put the permanent rules in place, but it won't take 6 months if somebody wants to volunteer through the church community, because we did reach out to 45 churches through the Interfaith Council to see if we could find a partner who would want to work with us. So anyway, having said that, I'm really hoping that we can pass the emergency ordinance today so we can set ourselves up for quick action and not reasons why we can't do it later. And then if the council would like us to bring forward any options for using public property, I think that one of the things we have to put our arms around is it needs to be public property that works both for the homeless community, the people that want to manage the camps, and the other citizens in the community, because we do represent everybody. But I'm open to that if that's what we choose to do. So with that, I don't know if you need to say anything else, Rick.
If I might, just a quick
Go
introduction
through a little bit about what's in it.
on the ordinance.
Yeah.
In general, cities don't take enacting emergency ordinances or interim controls lightly. In general, these are types of temporary regulations that are adopted to protect the public interest or to establish a process where none exists. And you do that to be in the public interest. It's this case we bring before you. We need to have a process so we could respond to an action from a member of the community or others to cite this kind of use. And in doing so, as council recalls, state law allows religious organizations to host temporary tent encampments on property they own or lease, and cities are prohibited from stopping that. In this case, we don't want to. What we want to do, however, is find a process that would allow us to review an application very quickly and allow an encampment to be established. If we waited and used conventional means, it would take us at least 6 months to meet our statutory notice requirements, do environmental review, and process this, which means that someone who came forward would have to wait 6 months from now before being able to consider doing this work. The ordinance that's before you tonight is an emergency ordinance. State law provides us a vehicle so that we can adopt that, if should you believe it's appropriate and in the public interest to serve the community, this evening. We would hold a public hearing within 60 days to take comment on it, and we would concurrently start review with our planning commission, ultimately residing with the city council, to get permanent rules. Issues involving public use and the public location could be discussed during that process too, so a recommendation could come before you, if not sooner. The ordinance itself is fairly straightforward. It would last for up to a year. It could be renewed, provided we're making substantial progress. It contains a number of sections and standards. The quick overview of that is that it allows the uses to be established on church property. It provides definitions of what the encampment would be. It establishes a numerical limit. And unlike other communities, we are cumulative. Most ordinances that have been written typically say one location up to 100 folks. And that's why these standards tend to deal with 100 people kind of camp, fairly large. You can imagine the kind of issues associated with sanitation or cooking or other means of that. We believe that our community may not have the capacity to mount that large of a tent village, but we could consider smaller ones with lesser restrictions, provided it met the basic tenets that have been established. The requirements are laid out. As the mayor noted, we have provision based on the scale and location of the site to waive requirements that make no sense for that location, and nor would be needed by the size of the project itself. There are some basic requirements in terms of obtaining the appropriate approvals for health and safety. That's sanitary requirements, safety requirements, and some prohibitions about who can reside in the village. For example, children are not, we do a very good job as a community, as you're aware, for placement with family with children who are unsheltered. It's the highest and most vulnerable population, and we work hardest to find shelter for those individuals. This would not be the first resort for that specific population. It also has the duration. These would be 90 days in one location with an extension possible for another 90 days. So maximum at 6 months. You might ask, why is 6 months established? And the reason is that many of our religious partners are located in residential areas. Again, this is meant to be a temporary fix, and there's no reason one could not relocate to a different religious facility. Also, I think to some degree, practically, volunteers get challenged, especially with a sponsoring organization. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the draft ordinance, or I'm sure Peter can talk about interim controls and their basis.
And I do want to add one thing, because one of the requests that the campers outside the City Hall had is dumpsters and porta potties. And I said that I believe the city could provide those. If we established an encampment or a tiny home, we could provide the dumpsters and the sanitation for a religious organization, or if it is in some other location. So we can do that. And I also marked on my list seeing if we could keep toilets unlocked. I know that there are sometimes problems when that happens, but I guess you have to weigh the accessibility of a porta potty with what 1 or 2 or 3 people might do. So I don't know if that could be something we could resolve quickly.
Council members?
Well, maybe Mr. Rufato will say something first.
Yeah, Peter Rufato, just 3 procedural points. One, following up on what Rick said, the basis for interim rules, they're cited in the third whereas clause of the ordinance. And this ordinance kind of joins those interim controls with our charter, which says that an emergency ordinance can take effect immediately, but that does require 5 affirmative votes. And finally, I would recommend reading the entire title of the ordinance as part of any motion, if that's going to be the case.
Okay, I'll read the title and tell me if I've got it right. Emergency Ordinance Authorizing and Regulating Temporary Homeless Encampments.
So I would go ahead and read, so if you have the actual ordinance, all the pages, the title's a little bit longer, sorry.
So you just want me to read the first paragraph? Okay, so I'll read that now. An ordinance of the City of Bellingham, Washington, regulating to land use and zoning, declaring an emergency, adopting interim zoning regulations for the siting, establishment, and operation of the temporary tent encampments, and setting 12 months as the effective period of the interim zoning regulations to allow the city to study the land use impacts of such uses. Councilmember Lillquist.
I would move approval of an ordinance declaring an emergency and adopting interim zoning regulations for the siting, establishment, operation of temporary tent encampments.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Councilmember Lillquist.
Yeah, I mean, a number of people today said we should recognize that there's a housing emergency. We actually did that over a year ago when we made a plea to state government to help us with our local issues. And we've paid our representatives in Olympia to go down there and say, Bellingham thinks we have a homeless emergency. Right now, state law allows these homeless tent encampments, but we have no way of approving them. They're not legal. We don't have any rules for them. As Mr. Sepler said, if we try to do it the long and normal way, we couldn't give an official approval for months. By doing this rather unusual procedure, unfortunately it's rather late and many people have left, we're able to do this pretty much tomorrow. As soon as someone steps up, we can use that provision in state law and use these temporary rules. I think we need to do this. As I said earlier, I do not think tent encampments are a good long-term solution, but they may be an important thing that we need to do in the short term. I will say I don't actually like a lot of the particular aspects of this particular version right here. I think some of them aren't how I would write them, but we can fix that in the long run. And also there is a provision in here that if some of these rules don't make sense, if you have 3 tiny homes, we don't need to apply the same rules if you have 100 tents. And our planning director can waive those. That's an okay way around it. I think we can tweak this and make it better, but right now I want to get this out the door because if and when there is an appropriate partner, I'd like us to be able to respond and respond legally.
Council, anything else? Councilmember Barker.
So the council and the mayor, for those that watched a few months back, called out publicly for religious organizations to step up and fill this gap of services. We decided that we had a lot of things on our agenda, especially related to housing in 2018, and wanted somebody else to step up and do that, and we said we would support it. And so the communities responded, and it would be irresponsible for us not to set in place emergency ordinance provisions to ensure the public health and safety and give guidance to those organizations as they move forward in the services of the community. So I'll be supporting it. I appreciate it coming forward and staff working so diligently on that and fulfilling the promise. So when we call out and we ask people, you can see that we're responding, and I really do appreciate that. I know it can create a little kerfuffle as people are trying to work on all the other things that we've tasked you all with, and thank you, Mayor, for your direction on that.
I'd just like to say that I will not be supporting this, not because I don't want to support what's being put forth. It's just I don't care for how we're putting it forth right now. So what happens is these kinds of things get brought to the council's attention and we have an executive session and then it's presented in this way. It's not in our packet. It's not anything that the community has seen, and then it gets initiated into law. And I don't like it when things go like that. That defies my values about what I believe about involving the community with creating laws in our decisions. And so I'll just be respectfully voting no because I don't like the way it was proposed.
And Roxanne, can I clarify something about that? Because I respect your opinion and your position. The reason we do the emergency rules is so we can start right away, but then we start the public process and we have an opportunity to change. Just for other council members, we have an opportunity then to change the ordinance if we get community feedback or other things that come up. So it isn't in stone, but I appreciate the position you took. So,
Councilmember Vargas.
I'm going to be supporting this. I typically wouldn't go to an emergency, but I think that tonight we again saw a lot of passion around people who are homeless and living in the cold, and they're asking us for action, and we are responding. So this isn't our typical way, but it's what's being asked of us so that we can we can provide some solutions immediately, and that's what the community is asking for, and that is what we are trying to provide through this ordinance.
Councilmember Borneman.
Yeah, I'm going to be supporting this. I do, and I understand about the emergency issue, but I do think we do fall into that in the sense that we have some possible providers who are interested in maybe going forward with this, but want some assurances of regulations. And for us to go through the regular process that may take 6 months to go through, we lose that whole opportunity if somebody is ready to step forward. And so because of that, I'm going to support it. I don't want to wait 6 months for somebody who might be willing to step forward now, you know, for that to happen and maybe lose that opportunity.
Okay, the motion is to approve an emergency ordinance authorizing and regulating temporary homeless encampments. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no? No. Motion carries with 6-1. And that is the end of our executive session. We will now move on to the mayor's report.